Writers write, but part of the creative process isn't just about putting ink to paper and creating worlds filled with vibrant characters. It's about refining those worlds and those pages to make everything as vivid and understandable as possible. Hi, I'm your host, Garrett K. Jones, and this month on Creators Corner, we're taking the first of 3 looks at the editing process. Happy Saturday, everybody. I'm glad to be back in the swing of things. Last week's interview with Caitlin Keller was awesome. If you haven't seen it yet, you can get caught up by clicking on the card right up here. Aside from liking and subscribing, there are a few things that you can do to become a channel supporter. First up, I'm on Patreon. Now, if you click on the link down in the description box, you'll have access to 4 support tiers to choose from. Last week I talked about the Mage tier, which runs you just $1 a month. This week I'm actually going to be telling you about the next tier up, the Dragon Warrior. For just $3 a month, you not only get all the perks from the Mage tier, that is recognition in the last vlog of the month, and 2 weeks early access to the first vlog of the next month, you also get access to a read-only PDF copy of an early draft of a chapter from Book 5. That means that if you sign up right now, you'll get to read the Book 5 prologue before the book ever gets published. Now, if you want to up your contribution, you can do that. There's also the Guardian of the Heavens and Magus tiers, but I'll leave that choice up to you. The other way you can be a channel supporter is by getting yourself some cool merch from my store. By clicking on that link in the description box, you'll have access to my merch store on Teespring, where you can find a variety of comfy clothes for men and women. You can find posters, phone cases, and more. Not only that, but I'm going to be doing a giveaway. I've got this really gorgeous poster sporting the cover art for all 4 books, and the best part, it's autographed. Here's what you need to do to win. Click the contest link down in the description box and promote the heck out of my YouTube channel. When I hit 200 followers, I'll announce the winner. It costs you nothing but a little word of mouth. Lastly, hang on, let's fix this again. I don't know why I keep having this problem. Lastly, I'm officially participating in No Shave November to raise donations for cancer support and research. It's crazy how in the 21st century we can build self-landing rockets so we aren't leaving them to waste in the oceans, but we can't cure cancer without essentially poisoning the body to starve the cancer to death. Personally, I've lost friends and family members to the disease, and I'm asking for your help to fight it. With a simple donation on the site linked down below, you not only get to watch me grow a luxurious beard for the entire month, you get to donate to a worthy cause. But let's have even more fun with it, okay? Whoever donates the most gets to decide what I do with the facial hair when November is over. So click the link, start donating between now and the end of November. Now, because I'm doing this fundraiser, I don't want to sound disingenuous or seem disingenuous by filming the first November episode early, shaving and then restarting everything. So right now, Patreons will have early access to this month's Forming Fantasy video before it is launched on YouTube next week. Before going any further with the video, be sure to subscribe and click the bell icon for notifications on new videos. You can select notifications for all videos, or you can select notifications based on your preferences. If you're watching on your phone, be sure to update those settings inside the app itself to get the most out of your viewing experience. So back in mid-September, I took a poll on social media to gauge the writing community's position on the topic of editing. I ran a poll on Instagram and Twitter, and the results were dramatically different. Now, I asked what the writing community dreaded more, writing or editing. On Twitter, 14 people voted and the majority, 93%, dreaded editing more than writing. 13 people voted on Instagram, but the percentages were almost even. Almost 54% or 7 of the 13 voters dreaded the editing process over writing. Some of the comments I got were kind of funny. The reaction to editing was visceral, like it brought out PTSD or something.
Well, Lottie frickin' da!
I get it. Editing can be really arduous and time-consuming. Personally, I enjoy it, and I was talking with Stephen J. Galgan, the author of The Circle, and we were both on the same page. That writing is a lot like dumping sand into a box, and editing is the process of sculpting it into the sandcastle. For the purpose of this series, I'm breaking editing down into 3 phases: substantive or content edits, line edits, and proofreading. I talked about all of these kinds of edits back in the first season of my podcast, which aired like a year ago, so I'll be pulling some of my points from those episodes. I'll be covering the last 2 over the next couple of months, but today, what I really wanted to do is focus on substantive edits. Substantive edits or content edits deal with essentially overhauling your entire manuscript. Going back to the sandbox metaphor, this is when the initial appearance of the sandcastle starts to take shape as you refine and remove portions of sand. These edits are structural and involve heavy amounts of content. This is where major changes happen. Scenes get moved around, huge cuts are carved out. You're making sure that it's readable by a general audience, that it flows and makes sense. This is where you realize you have too much sand and you're removing it by the bucketful. Substantive editing analyzes everything: the plot, tone, pacing, character arcs, all of it, and works out all of the kinks. This is where you make sure everything in the story is internally consistent, and if it's part of a series like my books are, that the external references to previous entries are consistent too. Of all the editing that we talk about over the next 3 months, this is the most labor-intensive and time-intensive process. And I think that's where writers, like the respondents to my poll, tend to get really freaked out. Substantive edits are a lot like jumping out of a plane at 30,000 feet and skydiving without a parachute while attempting to land in a net that's only 100 square feet in area. While it's not going to kill you, contrary to popular belief, it can be really frightening and there is a lot of room for error. However, if you are working through the edits with an editor, your editor will help you make sure that your work hits all of the notes and meets all of the goals necessary for your book to be ready for production. Now, if you're looking for an editor, here are some things to look for in a good substantive editor. First, the editor needs experience in content editing, not copy or proofreading. This is someone who can see and appreciate the big picture of the story from beginning to end. Second, you need an editor with experience in your genre. This doesn't mean that they have to read The Hobbit and they are superficially familiar with fantasy. You need an editor who delves into fantasy, guns blazing, familiar with the tropes, styles, and subgenres. I use fantasy as an example, but this is imperative whether you work on true crime, science fiction, historical fiction, kids lit, YA, etc. Third, you need an editor who is dedicated to encourage and challenge you. Like I said, the editing process can be just as daunting as the writing process, and you need someone who can give you reason to keep working hard. But just as equally, you need someone who is going to push you to think beyond your own limitations. I thought I was structurally set with my first book until my editor at the time made the recommendation to change the order of 3 of the chapters and to sandwich 2 chapters together. I resisted at first, but when she explained the reason behind her recommendation, I started to see it from her perspective. I made the changes and I've never looked back. Fourth, you need an editor who is willing to work within your budget and your time frame. I don't think much else needs to be said on that point. But the last point is the most crucial: respect for your voice as the author. Going back to the example from my experience with the editor I had on book 1, My editor wanted immediate resolution on plot points that were going to be long, slow burns for the reader that carried over into subsequent books in the series. She told me that it was a stupid idea and that nobody would appreciate that kind of forethought and long-term planning. I disagreed. After I got the initial edits, I dismissed her because of that lack of respect. Remember, it's your story, your voice. Your view of the story does matter. Now, what about if you're going to do the edits yourself? First things first. Once you've finished the writing, take some time off, step back, and come back to it with fresh eyes as if you could be reading it for the very first time. Now, when I finished writing book 2 back on New Year's Eve 2009, I didn't come back to that story until about 2016, by which point book 1 was published. I'm not saying you need to hold off from editing your book for 7 years. That's just how long I held off on it. But when I came back to it, I had this brand new, fresh perspective on the story. Now, when you do finally sit down to edit, start by making notes. That way you have something to work from before actually making the edits themselves. These are just some pointers for starting your journey as an editor on your book. Now, if you are looking for an editor, there are a variety of content editors available on platforms like Fiverr or Upwork, or if you'd like my personal recommendation for a great editor, I suggest going to the Reading Professional, and you can find her website down in the video description below. Hey, thanks for watching. Please make sure to like and share this video because that's how this channel is going to grow its viewership. If you are able to do so, please become a channel supporter by clicking the link and going down to patreon.com/GKJ Publishing, where you'll have 4 tiers to choose from, including the Mage and Dragon Warrior levels. Every tier comes with sweet perks. Don't forget to check out the new 5 Kingdoms merch store on Teespring. You can connect with me on Instagram and Twitter at GKJ_publishing, and I will see you guys next week for the first Season 3 episode of Forming Fantasy, where I will be doing a double feature talking about Oscuro, the vampire clan leader, and Drak Asar, the vampire progenitor from my series, The Archives of Isink Rain. The vlog of the 5 Kingdoms is filmed without the use of a live audience at Skyrocket Studios in Hanford, California. We can't do what we do without your help, so please make sure to subscribe by clicking the button that's above my head, and make sure to watch and share the videos over here to my left. Have a great week.